And hello, everybody, and welcome to 8-Bit Bistro Live, the show about pretty much anything I feel like, with guests who also agree about the random things that I decide I want to talk about. Today we're joined by a number of people you may know. If you're a regular to my stream, you'll know Monty. He's one of my Lancer players. Say hello, Monty.
Hello.
Hey. So we've also got Finley Kai, who is a lovely fish VTuber. Don't call her a mermaid, because she might bite you. Say hello, Finley.
Hey, listen, listen. I don't bite. I will fight you if you call me a mermaid.
Fair enough. And some of you might know Leaflet. If you don't, you should check her out. Her content's great, especially when she's scared of things like phasmophobia. Thanks for the host, Monty.
What? What am I here?
Yep.
What? Hello? Hi?
Hi, Leaf.
Guys, I'm being kidnapped! Help!
Wow, kidnapped. Harsh. I'm not kidnapping anybody. You're here under your own volition. And that's my story and I'm sticking to it.
Is that why you gave me candy to get me to come?
No, I gave you candy because it's Halloween. It's festive, okay? That's a very important difference.
So the van wasn't a part of anything.
No, the van was just transit. That's how we got you here.
Okay.
Well, because you're a fish, right? So like, it's hard to get you around. So we needed the van to cart you around. It's purely
The
voluntary.
van with the specialized hammock, the misters, everything has to be in place.
Yes, it's a complicated process to transit Finley from her oceanside home. But yes, so today we'll be talking about virtual reality. It has sort of become a little bit more prevalent in the last few years. My experience personally with VR is the Samsung Gear, which that's a generous thing to call VR, but it is technically VR. I've ordered myself an Oculus Quest 2, but that's not here yet. Everyone else here, I think, probably has a slightly better history with VR than me. Thanks for the host, Leaf. So I don't
Only very slightly.
know. Yeah, I know you also don't have an extensive VR history, right? So what do you got there, Monty?
Well, I've the most advanced thing I've used is the PlayStation VR. But I started on the Samsung Gear. That was my first real foray into VR, and I was like, wow, I can, play games that I've seen other people play, like, Keep Talking or Everyone Explodes, which was like the main thing that kind of forced me to go into VR and explore it as a medium, because people were doing really interesting stuff with it when when that game came out. Currently, I
Good
have
work, soldier.
the PlayStation VR, and I have an Oculus Go, which is a discontinued headset, but still a nice standalone unit to use for the occasional game here or there.
Yeah, I kind of jumped into VR in like a weird way. I I got I wouldn't say I'm super into VR chat, but I just tried one day to play it randomly on desktop mode. And everyone was running around like high-fiving and like giving each other like head pats. And I just got really jealous. I had gotten paid the day before. So it was like the next day I was like, you know what? I want to run around and give people hugs in VR.
I mean, that's
And
perfectly fair.
Yeah.
yeah, so I just caved and I got one. But now I almost never use it for VR chat anymore. I use it for like recently Phasmophobia. It's more like games. I have a Rift S. It's so scary.
Isn't it worse in VR? Like I don't think people understand. They see people playing Phasmophobia like not in VR. They don't understand like how much worse it is in VR.
Yeah, I like there's like a special difference between in horror for me between going from desktop to VR because you get that sense of immersion of like the horror is actually there. There's no buffers between you and the thing like trying to actively murder you.
Necessarily murdering. It is just trying to say hello in a raspy, horrifying voice.
No,
I-
it's trying to murder you.
That's
I-
terrifying.
I'm gonna veto that whole statement.
So Leaf, you have a little bit of an experience with VR.
Yeah,
Just a
I
little.
mean, I kind of like ever since like the whole VR thing happened, I really wanted to get in it like as soon as possible because I mean, I just want to like be taken to like a different like world and stuff like that. So I immediately went like all in when the first Vive came out. So I've had VR for a while, but the problem is it has its limitations. So I find myself having phases where I'll play VR a lot for like a period of time, and then I'll stop for like a month or two, and then before I even come back to it.
I
second that.
is actually kind
Yeah.
of common. I don't know about people in chat if you had the similar thing, but like when I got the gear, I think I maybe played 2 or 3 things, and I think
Good work, soldier!
it was like maybe a month before like I didn't really actively use it anymore. And I feel like the issue VR is it's kind of a hassle to get going, right? We all kind of have that thing where we want to be like the sci-fi or the anime interpretation of like virtual reality, where you just plug in and you're good. That just it's a space thing, I feel.
Yeah, it depends. It depends on what you're trying to do. If you're just going to play like one of those, contained games, you're using a controller and a VR headset, you can sit down and get comfy. But if you got like a Vive or something where you have to set up like points across the room, you got to like clear a space. If you don't have a dedicated VR space, it can get weird real quick.
Broke a lamp in VR Phasmophobia today. I don't have space for like mounts or anything. So yeah, it's hard. It's hard for me.
Yeah, I sort of
Yeah,
had that
my
issue.
first time with the PSVR with the 2 Move controllers, I definitely like sucker punched my drink that was on the table across the room. It was great.
Oh, I've spilled so many drinks. You know what? Every person that has VR, we have all spilled drinks, and I'm here for you. I'm here for you guys.
I punched like a fan on stream like about a month ago, and my hand still hurts.
Oh,
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 It was bad.
the struggle is real.
I mean, I think that's like kind of the limitations of VR right now. I mean, as much as we all probably want the VR industry to kind of move forward, there's too many. I feel like there's too many limitations as far as like getting a more global, what's the word? Adoption of the platform. Yeah.
Yeah, it's got some gatekeeping, for some of the higher end stuff. You're going to be spending a lot of money to get like the full VR experience. And I think that's one of the biggest hurdles besides the space, Depending on the amount of space you have, you can maybe go with a cheaper setup, but not a lot of developers are doing cool stuff for it. A lot of it is just like stuff tacked on to other experiences. And B, the stuff that is purpose made for it can be pretty niche sometimes.
yeah,
So
I think AR is actually a lot more mainstream, just because it's so much easier to implement. You kind of have a tech source that looks out rather than every individual person needs their own.
In the grand scheme of things, like video game companies, they're companies and they need to be profitable. And it's like, do you want to put all your eggs in a basket that has like low adoptability? You want to like experiment with all this new tech and to deal with the all the problems of VR, like the discomfort of the user, just the whole user experience of it. You have to deal with all of that for less of a user base. Like, just to put things into perspective, like currently there are roughly, I mean, I'm rounding up. There's like 11,000 players right now in Steam VR. I mean, think about that. We have like Counter-Strike Global Offensive. There's like almost 800,000 players, And I'm talking like in the entirety of Steam VR. You have like, you have 2,283 people right now playing Beat Saber on Steam, compared to how many people are playing, like, even like if we go down to like 10, you're talking about Rust. There's 70,000 people playing. So I mean, you have to consider like that user base, right? I mean, you're making a game. You have to make money off of it. Why would you put your eggs in that basket, right?
Right. And I think that's why a lot of developers nowadays are kind of going with, we're going to make something, but also give it like, you can play this in VR if you want, as opposed to doing specifically like at least AAA studios, they're not making like strictly VR games from what I've seen.
If you're
Yeah,
like
there's
a AAA,
Right.
there's not enough money in it.
Right.
VR
But VR,
still.
sorry,
Go ahead. You first.
Well, I mean, I was just gonna say, the VR add-on though, the VR experience add-on though, is like is the hot kind of thing right now. I mean, look at Star Wars Squadrons. Like that has a whole VR component that you can use, which adds to the game, but you don't have to have it to play and to be immersed. But that was like my only point there.
I completely forget.
I'm so sorry.
so springboarding off of that for a second. Now I think there's definitely a market. Like we're definitely like, I think invariably, right? The AAA companies aren't ever going to take that risk right now. There's not enough adoption. That doesn't necessarily mean there isn't a market. It's just they have to invest so much money into the game that it's not gonna make sense for them to do that, or something as niche. But we're definitely seeing developers who are willing to take that risk. Like Boneworks, like 100%. They went in knowing that it was a very niche thing, but like they did very well because it was, a game that was based off of like platform. We're also seeing games like Project Wingman, which take games that we know formulaically work, like Project Wingman is effectively Ace Combat, but in VR. And these are things that people are definitely 100% like looking forward to, willing to try. Boneworks sold real well. Half-Life Alyx is sort of that weird edge case because it is like a major developer, but that's also just because Valve wanted to sell you their index.
I mean, that's the thing is I feel like these VR games are more passion projects than anything, or something that can launch a franchise or something forward. Because I mean, the only real game that we have here, I mean, think about Beat Saber, right? The cost to produce Beat Saber is probably significantly less than Half-Life Alyx. Like if you look at the production quality, just art wise, like they must have needed a pretty like sizable team to launch Half-Life Alyx. Whereas Beat Saber, I feel like you could launch that game with a small indie team, which is what they were, I believe. And I mean, just looking at it, they're like over double the concurrent like players like the players currently of Alyx. So it's like, is that really worth it? And on top of that, like again, like we're talking VR systems, right? Like even for just a basic system, you're looking at 500 just for the PC. So it's like, unless these games go into hybrid, like Finley was saying, Finley and Monty were saying, it's going to be very difficult for them to actually recoup their costs.
I know that a lot of the VR industry, as a side effect, and consumers getting it, but a lot of them are pushing more, the VR arcade concept. Corona has not helped, but up until that point, I feel like they were starting to make progress along that as being a thing.
Yeah, I did see a lot of them starting to pop up. I think that they were a good idea because they were a good way to introduce users into VR, where a lot of people aren't ready to make the financial commitment to get VR. The other thing with new users is also being comfortable in the software, because I know a lot of first-time users will get very, very seriously motion sick the first time they play.
I think there's not really anything we have that can solve that, unfortunately.
Oh no. The only way to solve that is if the player could actually move themselves. So if you could walk as far as you wanted, I think they have those like weird. They have very expensive, weird like gyro sinks you can stand in.
Yeah.
No, but nobody has those because they're huge and expensive, and you look like a derp running around in the same spot.
The big one was Orchard Tricks at the Omni, but it was like a big weird dish thing, and you would walk, and it would like send you like this like bumper cable thing, so like you could run and you could jump and stuff. The real problem is after they launched, they went private and switched over to doing the VR arcade thing. So like it became increasingly harder for, someone like you or me to buy one. That actually does lead to a question, right? Like one of the problems we have with VR, that like space and setup and time and all that stuff. The other problem is like immersion in VR is good, but mostly visual, right? Like tactile feedback is in development but not great. Motion is thing. The issue is like they're developing those technologies 100%. Like there's the haptic feedback like vests and suits that you can buy or are in development. There's that weird like scent thing that someone developed. There's also like the ability. There's like some research lab. For the life of me, I suddenly can't remember what it's called or where they're from. But basically, they have these air bladder gloves where you interact with the VR. Like it's purely a theoretical development thing, but the idea is that like as you interact with the VR space, the air bladders inflate and they put pressure back against your hand, so it feels like you're touching things. Um, and that solves the whole, immersion aspect, but just infinitely complicates the space and setup aspect. So the question is like, what do you think is better for VR? Simplifying it or making it more immersive?
I feel like for profit, it has to be simplified. I feel like from a player standpoint of like experienced users, we want more immersion. But I also want the companies to make money so that they can invest in doing cooler, bigger projects and making more games. Because I think at the end of the day, having great games is really what is going to like make or break VR. I think once it's simplified, if you can just pop on a VR headset and go and like just have a big open space, I think that that would make VR much more prevalent as like a popular medium. But considering now like the time, the setup, the cost, and all those other things, it's just so hard to popularize it.
I think having an enthusiast only player base, user base is not a good idea for VR. I mean, we have the arcades for that, and of course, people that are gonna be enthusiasts are gonna be enthusiasts. Like I'm always gonna buy like the really expensive good VRs, but that's not good for building a user base. Again, I spoke earlier of the user base is not very large, and I think companies like I think we got like PlayStation doing their PSVR, and we have the Oculus Quest 2 coming out like at a pretty low price point. I think those are probably what is gonna be able to bring VR more to a larger stage. And we need that larger stage in order to support the enthusiasts because there's going to be no interest in money um, in this medium unless we can broaden the user base. So I think that while me personally, and I'm sure like everyone here personally would want to have like, the smell thing that the feedback, it's not that important industry wise. And I think if the industry focuses hard on that and does not try to support the broad user base of gamers, that it's going to be in trouble. And I think none of us want that.
Yeah.
Monty, you have a tendency to mute yourself and forget that you've been talking this whole time.
No, I actually had to step away for a moment because I got an inexplicable phone call, and I do apologize. That's
Oh, no.
extremely unprofessional of me.
That's perfectly fine. You gotta take the call when you gotta
So
take the call.
yeah, so I do apologize about that. So what is it we are discussing currently? VR.
TLDR, more fancy stuff that takes space or more accessibility? Which do you think is better? Like things like tactical feedback and send, and
Yeah.
you know, the full, like that full immersion, which is really like the
So
enthusiast.
yeah, like I mean, here's the deal. We don't need to focus, and this is my opinion, obviously, but we don't need to focus at all anymore on accessibility. In my opinion, the price of the what was it? The Oculus Rift? No, not the Oculus Rift 2.
Quest 2.
What was the Quest 2? The price point of the Quest 2 makes it accessible, and it's pretty powerful for its price, given the amount of money that I paid on my Oculus Go. You know, like a year and a half ago, whenever it came out, basically. It's leaps and bounds better, uh, and it's not terribly expensive. It's about the same price as a gaming console, and it's a single it's its own contained unit, right? I think that we really do need to focus more on getting to that nice let's aim for Sword Art Online or something like that, total immersion, because that really I think is going to start people thinking more about it. I want it to be like when you went to the mall in the 90s and there was a guy who would have this booth where you get into a treadmill that's basically a big ball and you run around with a VR headset on with a rifle. Like you're actually running around and killing enemies, or you're doing these other things, and it feels that much more immersive. The visuals back then weren't as built up as they are now, but the immersion I think was better, and I think we should get back to something like that and try to make it, once we get there, make it more accessible. Build out the fun stuff and then condense it.
What? So you're going for the like the big showy, not necessarily for like end user, like buy at home right away, but you're talking about like you want to have like the VR theater, the VR arcade, or like the VR room, where like it's just all the bells and whistles that like you show off to make them go, man, I want to buy into that.
Right. Well, because think about it, people dedicate entire rooms to their houses right now for theater spaces or, audio rooms. A VR room is something that I'm sure people are already dedicating their space to, and I'm sure they want, you know, more high test equipment that they can, be like, hey, I have the full immersion experience into, Halo 17, feel the feel the gunshots, not really, at full force, but you get the idea. Be there in the moment, you know.
I mean, the problem is that that's I mean, clearly we all want to have that kind of experience, but realistically, we're not even close to that. And I don't think we have the ability to really if we're talking more people using VR, I think we need to focus on usability for people that have less money. If we want to do enthusiast systems, we can try the arcade thing. The arcade thing is taking off, but just to make a point, the arcades that Monty was talking about, they all shut down, right? So
They did.
we have to
Right.
we have to kind of consider that how do we bring more people into this without having that situation of we built up all of these arcades and they just all crash, right?
I will say, as a somewhat related topical point, right? Like now is also a really bad time for any of that. Like
Right.
just as a point of example, there is a movie theater chain that recently just decided they were going to shutter completely. I don't know if you're familiar with the Regal Cinema chain, but they have now officially ceased to exist. They've just decided to quote their press was basically that there wasn't a market for movie theaters. I would also like to point out that I was find it hilarious that they blamed New York State because the state didn't allow people to go. But right now we have the whole Corona thing, and like we all like to believe that that's going to go away, and eventually it will. But like, I think for a couple years at least, um, that's a serious concern. So like, I think even if we do say that like we want that arcade experience, like I don't know about anyone else, but when I was younger, arcades were a thing, and I miss them dearly because I live in the part of the world where they don't have them. But like, as much as we would love them, they just don't work the way things are now.
Yeah, I really genuinely do think accessibility is important and having an immersive game. I think both things are really important. I think the thing that connects both of those together are having games that can be played in an accessible environment that are still fun and enjoyable to the user without breaking that level of comfort zone or requiring that huge level of tech. Um, I genuinely think that the more games that there are in the industry, the more people will come over to the VR side of things to play around with stuff. Um, I have to say that we do have to go with to Leaflet's points. What's going to make the industry money, so more people are willing to invest in it first. Because once we get the investments, we'll get the more immersive experience after. Sorry, big words.
I think right now it's an issue of comfort. I think there's a lot of issues with, especially the enthusiast systems, comfort wise. I mean, I have like the wireless Vive, for example, and it is a lot nicer, and we don't have that for any of the other systems. Like they just discontinued that like straight. I don't know why exactly, but they just discontinued wireless support. So now we have to look towards things like the Quest, and I think that's a really good thing to not have to set up, because again, like people don't want to deal with that. They don't want to deal with like I buy this VR and I have to like set up all these cables and stuff. And I think companies need to make that aspect of it more accessible. So I think the Quest is actually doing a good job. I think contrary to what a lot of people are saying.
I mean, let's segue off of that point actually. Let's talk uh hardware and modern hardware. Right? So originally, obviously, when we started with VR, it was the whole base stations with external tracking, and external tracking has its benefits. Um, it's a little bit more accurate. It does allow you to do things that you can't do with the inside out tracking, but I feel like um, the average person doesn't want to set up like a play space. So the inside out tracking is just far more convenient. My understanding, I think, is that pretty much every headset except for the Index is going the direction of inside out tracking. Um, and instead of like further implementing, like refining the tracking, which I think, I mean, you guys can speak a little better on this, but like my understanding is that tracking is adequate. Like you don't necessarily need body tracking, like it's convenience, but like practical application, kind of a little limited, right? So that people are focusing more on like better refresh rate, better resolution on the display. Like Leaflet was saying, wireless. Obviously, that includes things like better battery life, better onboard processing power because you make it a standalone headset. Things like that. We're sort of at this weird point where like we're right before all the new generation headsets come out. Like Rift S is retiring next year. Quest is retired, pushing for the Oculus Quest 2. Um, the HP Reverb G2 is HP's new headset. It's got sort of that whole like inside out tracking. It's a wireless unit. I think, I believe it's a wireless unit. I have to double check that. But it is just doing that incremental thing where it's just like it's got the better pixel density on the screens, got a better refresh. The only thing I think that really is on the market pushing, the old-fashioned like external base station tracking is the Valve Index, because Valve is all about like that body tracking and that stuff. What are your thoughts on the direction that the hardware is going, and what would you like to see either changed or improved on the things that they're sort of developing iteratively?
I'm gonna be upfront and honest here. I don't have full body tracking, and I still don't understand how just my normal like hands and head tracking works in VR. I think it's absolutely magic. There's fairies in headsets. It's my genuine belief. I mean, I have an understanding of how the trackers actually communicate to one another, but the technology behind it, it's just like it wows me all the time. But in terms of like the full body versus and the inside tracking versus the external sensors and everything, I think that just comes down to user preference. And for me specifically, I don't have full body, but I feel like the full body itself applies very much to enthusiasts because I don't have it, but every time I see someone that does have it, I'm like, okay, well, maybe I want this. And it's on like a list of like potential investments. I've never hit that point where I feel like it's worth the actual investment to have it because having the tracking I have right now is the Rift S is fine. And I feel like that's a lot of people's mentality. You only really need full body if you kind of want to have the nicest things or like show off to your friends. I feel like that's a lot of my friends have it to be shiny. We like shiny. I love shiny things. But I don't have them.
Well, I actually have full body tracking, and I kind of had a similar mentality towards it. I think the problem is there's not a lot of integration in games. Like, there's not a lot of games where you can like actually kick something, for example. Just speaking like purely from like VR chat, it does add a lot more immersion. It's really good for people that want that immersion or people that are like, for example, for VTubers, it's good to have full body because you can become a lot more relatable on screen with your audience. But it is kind of just a big DLC that's not really supported by most things. I think there's a couple games. One that comes to mind is was it Blade and Sorcery? Yeah, Blade and Sorcery. You can actually like kick things in that, but is that the one? Might have been, yeah, I think it's Blade and Sorcery, where you can actually kick things with it. But other than that, I mean, the applications of it is just not being supported because again, it's you're already spending a lot for a VR system, and then you're gonna need an additional 300 for trackers, which are like really difficult to get nowadays. And then you're gonna need to buy the straps for that. You're gonna need, all these cables. You're gonna have to manage for charging, and it's really quite a pain. So I think that's why it's going to be hard to sell that to game developers.
It is
Yeah.
fantastic for VTubers though, for 3D model.
Yeah.
Basically the only application. Sorry.
No worries. But to kind of hop on that, I agree. Like, I'm a full advocate for like, full immersion, but I realize that the adoption is going to be extremely low, especially in its, initial stage, because you need the space for it, you need to put down the money for it, and you need to have sometimes more technical know-how about how these things work. And because of that lump buy-in, that's why the developers that are making the software for it are sticking with what can work on the stuff that people buy the most, right? And that's where you get these condensed internal tracking units that maybe have like your two wand controllers with the multiple buttons, so you can do basic things with your arms and hands, and move your head around. But yeah, I think that largely it is dictated by what are people buying, which then dictates the software market, which then kind of cascades into more of these accessible, advanced but not quite fully immersive technically units.
I don't know how much the audience knows about the differences between the inside out and the base station tracking. The main difference between them is that the inside out tracking can't track behind you. And that has a lot of gameplay ramifications, actually, design-wise, because with the base station tracking, you can actually track movement like 360 degrees. So, for example, a good game I like to bring up for this is was a Space Pirate Simulator. You can have enemies shooting you from behind, and in Space Pirate Simulator, you can shoot them over your shoulder. You can block with a shield over your shoulder. It's not something that you can do with the inside out tracking. And that's like the main difference. And I think the other difference is also the capability of tracking well. But with the new systems that came out, like the Quest 2, we're seeing it improve drastically. So I think if the game needs that like 360-degree tracking, it's like the only reason to really have base stations.
So to hop onto that point, do you? This is just kind of playing devil's advocate a little bit. Do you think that people would adopt it more as sort of a "hey, this is more fun" kind of thing, or do you think that people might, actually, people might go for the "this gives me a competitive edge" angle?
You mean in terms of the game design of having players that have both inside out tracking and base station tracking playing in the
Right.
same environment? Well, I mean,
Yeah.
that is something that game designers are going to have to take into account, because clearly, if you can shoot over your shoulder with one system, with base stations, you can't with inside out tracking. That is going to be a competitive edge. There are some things that the inside out tracking companies are trying to do with like some predictive tracking, where like it will still sort of track you just kind of based on like what it thinks you would be doing. But again, that's not actually true tracking. So there will be a competitive edge, just innately by definition of what the two types are. So I guess it depends on how much that matters to the. I mean, we're not really in a space where VR games are competitive yet, and I think we're very far from that as far as it being more widely acceptably competitive. So I don't think it's really something to worry about at this point, but maybe in the future.
Gotcha.
I think it'll be interesting when/if VR games do end up becoming more of a competitive side of things. Because in that environment, I wonder what type of skill set becomes the most valued. Like right now in competitive gaming, it's a lot of fast reflexes, quick processing, but when you start adding the VR element into it, you're going to need more physical attributes too, depending on like the game and what ends up becoming popularized. Just I don't know. It opens up an interesting possibility for me, for like where that industry would go. I don't even know, in all honesty, how competitive VR would even be broached.
I don't know why I
Definitely an
bring it up.
interesting thought.
Yeah, I mean, I bring it up just strictly because I find that in terms of hardware acceleration, competition usually ends up driving it faster than just curiosity. You can have a
100%.
lot of cool stuff that's built for things, but if it runs it well enough and no one's really like getting ranked or anything, then hardware developers can kind of fudge things here or there. But I think that the hardware is now at a point where we could potentially start seeing some competitive stuff come up, and then we'd start getting the hardware developers that are like, oh, get the the uh, the Call of Duty Pro VR setup with better tracking and stuff, and then that hardware then a year later becomes more commonplace. Those protocols, whatever different tracking protocols they put in, I don't know. Just thinking about it from a couple different angles here.
Kind of frightening about the prospect where like all in VR and we're just doing like weird exaggerations, fantasy entertainment.
And yet there have been several popular media things that have come out where that is, a supposed version of the future, which is another reason why I kind of bring it up. Movies like Gamer, books/movies like Ready Player One, where it's more important to be accurately tracked in a virtual reality way, and media like Sword Art Online, that kind of stuff, to bring it up again. But yeah, it's something that could definitely drive hardware really well and possibly also drive adoption. But the other issue that I find comes up when you talk about using VR and full body tracking, it comes back to accessibility, and not just like regular, consumer accessibility, but also, folks with disabilities, you know, coming in and playing these games. Not everybody can, participate in the same way. So I think that's maybe one of the reasons why developers are kind of keeping things kind of on the slow track right now, because the market dictates it. And video games have always been extremely accessible. I mean, we have specialty controllers that other companies build for people who have varying ranges of disabilities, and that's a beautiful thing. Full body VR, though, if you start getting that into competition, then that brings in the question of, well, should we be limiting this, or is this basically just now regular sports but digital?
I don't think regular sports would become like an esports type thing. There definitely are esports that have like that sport aspect. I mean, you have FIFA and like those types of games that actually do have a pretty big competitive scene. But I don't think with the space and the limitations of hardware that we'd be able to replicate that into a VR environment on a grand scale. What I think would actually be more interesting to watch is almost like a god type game. Like, imagine if you took competitive StarCraft. You got into a competitive StarCraft and you had someone sitting in the back with the entire map around them face to face with someone, and you have to make those interactions like with your hands for your troops and stuff. I think that would be interesting to watch. Something with that, which is still strategy based and it's more of like the head, but then you're also interacting with how fast are the reflexes? How fast can they make these moves? I think that something like that has a much bigger possibility of becoming a competitive esport than actual sport would for VR at least.
I have to agree with that. I don't think that VR sports is really gonna eliminate, I guess, current esports. I don't really foresee that happening. But kind of integrating VR into those styles of games, I think, is more likely. What Finley said. I mean, there are gonna be people that do play like, maybe VR boxing type of games competitively, but I think that's a different market.
They have VR boxing. I would love to fight some of my friends.
PSVR
Wait, what?
has boxing. I've heard it's actually pretty good. Read video game. Ending it.
I think that's one. I saw some good stuff about that, actually, but it's not real unless you strap 2 pounds to each of your hands, right?
Yeah. That's a game that I foresee causing a lot of breaking of things.
Oh yeah.
I broke things in Wii boxing, so if I can't see what's in front of me, stuff's gonna get broke.
Oh, I still broke stuff doing Wii boxing. It just happens.
Yeah, VR boxing feels like it's just absolutely an accident waiting to happen.
I don't know why that makes me excited. Maybe it's because I'm just like, okay, so I'm just like a walking disaster. I just destroy everything in my path. I don't mean to. I promise I don't. It just happens. I feel like I feel like I'd really enjoy that game. I'm not sure if it's the fact that I know that things will get broken along the way, even if I'm not trying to, but it sounds fun.
That's fair.
Time to tape pillows to the walls and get at it.
Actually, let's follow that train of thought for a second, right? VR games, either stuff that's coming out or you out. What is your like? This is the VR game that.
That's actually hard for me because I feel like whenever I'm never the one that seeks out VR games. They're always brought to me. And can't say I've ever gotten into like if someone's brought me a VR game and I've hopped in, I don't think I've ever not enjoyed one before, minus maybe Phasmophobia right now, which I have a very interesting relationship with. The
Yep.
broken lamp.
Yeah. Fair.
I think to kind of look at this from my perspective, I'm just looking at a list of like games that are coming out this year or have, and the stuff that's getting released, it just seems, again, there are certain things that make sense, like the Room VR. Like if you ever played that series of games, like that, brings it in. It doesn't require a whole bunch of stuff, but like my my VR experience would probably be stuff that kind of already is out there, like the game where you get to be on the bridge of a ship, like the Enterprise or what have you. What was it, Bridge Crew or whatever?
Yes.
Like that kind of stuff where you're playing a role, and I think that some of the most fun I've had with VR has been in role playing. If you're just in a first person shooter or you're like flying a plane, like that's cool and all, but if you can really dig deeper into your immersion in a game where you are playing a role and you're interacting with the story and the characters, like that would be like just tops for me. um Elder Scrolls VR, let's go for that. Like that's my dream game, if you will.
Elder Scrolls Skyrim has VR.
Right, but it's just Skyrim plus VR. I want them to really, work with the VR more and try to figure out interesting ways to make it matter more than just, taking a first person perspective game and then saying, okay, here it is. Make my gestures mean something. I want to be able to give nonverbal cues if possible.
You put
Stuff
that
that really, really
put that
puts it in there.
amulet of Mara on, you really want to be able to seduce.
Listen, that Argonian maid isn't going anywhere, all right?
There are the 7 books.
I think that's a different kind of VR experience that you're starting to describe there.
Uh,
Uh,
That might be a little toss. Let's not go down that path.
no, I'm talking more about just like being able to like maybe signal to teammates, or signal to even virtual companions without using buttons or shouting out something, that kind of stuff.
Do you want to shout Frustro Da as you blow something off the cliff?
I mean, that would be pretty sweet. I'm not gonna lie. Pretty sure the neighbors might call folks, but whatever.
You admitting to in chat there, Leaf. What's going on over there?
I don't know what you're talking about. What are you slime denial? I'm not a bad slime.
I mean, that's a whole other, actually very large market in VR.
It really is. But that's also like 90% of what drives industry, if we're being perfectly honest.
It's true.
It's how
but
we have
it's-
Blu-ray. It won the format war for them.
Wait,
Yeah,
The closest path to your dream of Sword Art Online multi.
until somebody like actually creates those those horrifying rubber finger suits from Upload.
Oh no.
Oh no is correct.
Yeah.
But listen, I mean, if we're gonna go down that path, I mean, technically, people have already made large strides towards trying to make that virtual experience very physical, and it's horrifying.
I have seen to not go toss, but I have seen some very interesting controllers used with Live 2D to.
I am
I've
too
seen
modest
videos.
for this
I have
conversation.
seen videos.
Listen, the virtual world is vast and wide, and it covers a wide array of interests, hobbies, and people. That is all I'm going to say on that topic for this conversation.
For more examples of what he is talking about, go visit Second Life. Any
Oh
server.
my god.
Hey, they don't do VR, remember. They tried. It
No,
failed.
they don't do it, but I think that you'll get an idea.
I mean, VR chat has that too, so it's not.
Yeah, that's private.
Oh, VR chat.
We don't talk about that. Because VR chat terms
It's not actually. You just can't do it in public.
right. They are very.
That's where everyone has full body tracking in that. So there it is. There's your adoption of high-end VR right there. It's like
Listen, Phantom Sense is a thing, and some people enjoy it way more than they should.
Okay, wait.
Now, if we
aside-
just make it competitive.
A side
somehow.
story from VR chat. So I'm anyone who doesn't know me, hasn't been in a stream of mine before. I am very, very modest. I'm mature, kind of. I'll laugh if someone says boobies, but nothing bad. The like second time I played VR chat, it was the first time I had my VR set. I had I was just like in making friends, and so I was like just accepting random friend requests. I had this person come up to me with full body, and they followed me around for a good hour. Just they were just like, I just really want to be a stripper for you, and I was like, what?
God.
And they would just follow me around, and they were just like, damn, it was like I just didn't know what to do. I like didn't know what to say. I was like, I'm okay. Thank you though. And he was like, oh, you're very welcome. I'll just keep following you. I was like, no, it's okay. It's really, we're fine.
We're done here. Please stop.
We're done.
Oh dear.
It's funny when I look back at it.
So we've gotten a little bit off track.
Oh, definitely.
I would say everything that we've talked about is extremely important to VR.
We'll put a pin on this conversation because I'm sure it'll come up again. But Leaf, we were talking about like what is the game that's either coming out that you want, or like what is your idea of like the game using currently available like things now, like that you want to play? Like what kind of VR game interests
I just want like a VR MMO, honestly, that is a little bit more visceral with its motions. Because there's Orbis right now, but Orbis is like the there's not like a lot of like parrying. Like I want to see something like VR Dungeon Night type of thing, VR Dungeon Night with like an MMO setting, like healers and parties. Like I want like co-op stuff, you know.
Actually, I actually just thought of a game that I think would be like pretty wild if it was VR. A game like Shadow of the Colossus, where you have just a giant monster that you're like going up and down, climbing and like hitting specific points. I think that would be wild in VR.
That would absolutely be wild. I endorse that 100%. Because instead of having that third-person perspective, you've got your first-person perspective. You need to look around, see where you're at in the monster, look for, landmarks on it. Yeah.
I don't want to spoil anything about the actual game for anyone who hasn't played it. But when you play the game, I'm just like imagining like being that first-person character that's like reaching out for a loved one and you're doing all the stuff to try and save them. I just think that would be so overwhelming as like a first person view when like the music builds up and the fights start and like you're doing this all for like I oh god, actually I'm really excited about this now. Who do I have to call to get this made?
Have you played Township Tale, Finley?
I have not.
Oh, that's like that has climbing and it's very hard.
Okay,
That's when I punched my fan from that game.
I'm putting a note on it.
it's not a very well known game, but it's a really very good VR game. Very good like combat and stuff.
Man, that's all you had to say. I'm all about that combat.
What was it called again?
It's Township Tale, and it is by Alta.
Remember, don't punch
Gotcha.
your fans.
Yeah.
Learn from
Yeah,
Leaflet.
it has co-op too, so it's really fun. Just like there are times like I was playing and then we would get attacked by this really big monster and like it would like one shot any of us, and I'm sitting there like ducking behind the shield, like just praying that my shield's not gonna break, and my allies are just like shooting as fast as possible. It's really fun.
It sounds fun. I might give it a go when my Quest 2 arrives time next month.
I'm already in. I'm already looking at it.
Sadly, my VR doesn't get here until... Which is actually not bad because I didn't order it till like end of September. It's supposed to launch, I think, this. So yeah, that's actually not that bad. Although, you know, I also ordered microphone, stream rig, back in June. It still hasn't shipped because apparently they just ceased to.
Yeah, that microphone.
I found a lot of hardware has during COVID has just completely disappeared.
Yes. It is it's your time to be buying computer.
Yes.
VR does not seem to be the exception to that because I believe Quest 2 sold quite well. Don't let's check those numbers, but they were real good. Although, you know, the $299 for the base model, that's a good start price. I'm stupid.
So that's fantastic.
Bought the 256 model because I was like, well, I might choose to not hook it up to my PC, but who am I kidding?
Yeah.
But, you know, I was dumb and I bought the more expensive. And I bought the case. And I bought Pro Strap. Strap is, man, they got me good on accessories.
I was about to say it's okay. Did you see shiny? Said you get shiny. It's all right.
I buy fancy things for my computer because I use it a whole hell of a lot, and I feel like that justifies it.
I mean, I'm not going to argue with you.
See, Bray is yelling at you in chat right now because she saw that I was looking at buying like a $300 racing wheel.
Oh no! It's that I wasn't saying you should spend money on everything. I was saying it's nice to treat yourself to something nice every now and again. You don't need a $300 racing wheel.
That there racing
Sorry,
wheel.
Bray. I'm covering it. I'm sorry.
But yeah. Actually, that's sort of a thing about VR, right? Like, it is sort of a luxury purchase.
Yeah, 100% right now it's a luxury purchase.
I mean, all things gaming are sort of, you know, a luxury, of course. Even in the land of luxury, like VR is sort of the excess in the excess.
I agree to that. You know, yeah, you can game on your cell phone, technically, but you know, there's different levels to everything. You know,
That's like the best thing about being a VTuber is I just justify everything in my mind as a business expense.
But you can write it off as a business expense.
right? Much like I can
Business
write
won't
off
work.
musical instruments as a business expense.
Just as an aside, me and Monty know a store owner who I'll not name, but he runs a development company and a gaming store. So frequently he writes off both video games and physical game purchases as research. And it's great.
Yeah. And I have 9 bass guitars, so
Oh dear, I hope I never
Well,
reach that point from VTubing.
I was gonna say, in terms of VTubing, VTubing and VR are actually like very, very intertwined with each other. And there's such a long list of investments you can make into between models and VR tech as a VTuber. Like my list is so long, but unfortunately I have to run on a budget. I can't write anything off.
I mean,
They're all there.
theoretically, anytime I buy a game, that's a
Same.
if I damn, I should have filed my taxes better last year.
Yeah.
You do have to list all any Twitch revenue as part of your taxes. So if you buy something and it's for Twitch and it's for streaming, technically that is part of your business.
God, I don't even want to itemize what I spent on my stream this past year. It's a lot. It's a whole lot.
I feel like a lot of streamers very, very closely relate to that statement.
No, you don't understand. I've commissioned 8 songs. I pay per minute.
Rest in peace, Edgy
Actually,
Swallow.
technically, I pay per second.
Per second.
Technically,
Wait,
it's
second?
it's a
Second?
reasonable rate per second, but like because they're several minutes long, it adds up. I've spent a lot on these. I think I've spent
Okay.
a value that I don't want to say, but it's 3 digits.
Okay, let's turn the conversation away from how much Sidney spends. I feel like he's breaking a little bit. He sounds sad.
It does make me a little sad.
It's okay. Happy thoughts, puppies, cute things.
And I like the music that I commission, and it's great.
Good songs.
You can catch it when I run my Lancer stream. That's totally a pitch, and it's gonna justify the fact that I spent money on it. There we go.
Yeah, Captain.
Yeah. I don't want to reveal my full stack, but I'm looking to my right and I'm seeing 1,200 musical instruments, and that's 3 of them. So let's move the conversation along.
Well, 3 of us here are streamers. We could totally write off our VR expenses. I'm totally going to write off my Quest 2 purchase now. I'm going to have to file my taxes a little bit more in detail this year. It'll be fun. Yeah, VR.
Oh, Sedgy.
Wow, Bray, calling me out like that. Wow.
Oh man. Well, I mean, yeah, you gotta. Is there a way to stream from the new headset you're getting there, buddy?
Yeah, it's called the Link. You connect to your PC, you treat it like a PC headset. Which also, related, since we're talking about VR, like that is a thing that I feel like most headsets should consider. Like I know the whole thing is like everyone wants to go with like the big fancy unit, you hook it straight to your PC and you go, but like it would be nice if more headsets just like, hey, maybe you didn't want to buy the $600 computer play on your $400 headset. Maybe you want to buy the headset first and play some games. Why aren't more companies doing this?
True.
I mean,
and it goes to that tiered approach too. Make it accessible, but also make it so that if you're hardcore or just want a different experience, you can do so.
So, Leaflet, you mentioned that you have like the OG like headset, like you bought it in early.
Yeah, I have the 5. I basically have almost the same computer I had when the Vive launched. I have the HTC. This is actually my second HTC Vive because it's a shitty headset, and the other one broke.
Yeah. So, have you looked at the new headsets coming out? Do any of them catch your eye? Do you want to replace it with like a newer, better model?
I mean, I'm replacing it with an index, and I probably actually the index that my mom is using is actually like I bought that, but you know, she's watching and she's gonna get mad at me. So anyway,
Hi, Leaflet's mom.
Hi, Leaflet's mom.
oh my god. Um, so I ended up so I had like my first 5, and then that one broke. I ended up getting another one, and I hooked it up with the wireless adapter. So I mean, it is kind of nice because it has the wireless adapter, but like I think it's just getting to a point where like just the comfort level on it and just the screens on it is just like I'm starting to really notice as I switch between the old Vive and the Index. So I actually just like bought another Index so I could just be rid of it. I guess.
Well, okay, so that raises an interesting question. Have you looked at the Quest 2 HP Reverb? Like, they have like the higher resolution screens, and
Uh-huh.
have you
I
like
mean,
considered something like one of the newer like because Valve probably isn't gonna do like a refresh and a new hardware probably next not till like the year after, I would guess.
I, I mean, for me, the reason why I didn't really go with them is I wanted to use the based station tracking,
Okay.
so that's why I kept the index style of headset. You know, all of the new ones are using the inside out tracking,
Okay.
which is the main reason why. Yes.
Fair enough. I had to do some panel moderating for a second. Yeah, like I know a lot of the headsets will um support the external tracking, even if they're inherently like inside out. Gotta finagle it a little bit, usually like Steam VR. I was just mostly curious because like the Quest 2, touted it, the best pixels per inch because it's 1832 by 1920. But obviously the HP, which isn't out yet, is superior because I think it's claiming, I think it's 2160 by 2160. I think. Um, yeah, I was just curious if you had an opinion on like, the pixel density as a thing that you've been.
I actually don't know very much about like the effects of that type of thing. I just know that when I wear the HTC Vive, it makes me more disoriented than the um, Index. I don't really know exactly how much it matters as far as like the pixel density, but I mean, better for me. I just want it to look as good as possible.
Okay, fair. Actually, I feel like your disorientation might actually have to do with refresh rate because I believe the Vive, I think it's either 72 or it might be max 90. I know the index goes up to 1 if your system can drive it at that, in theory. So that might actually be a big important difference for you because if that's something that bothers you, better refresh rate would help you a lot. Which, for the viewers at home, like that's an important thing for you to consider. If you get nauseous, the higher refresh rate, if you can drive that higher refresh rate, it will help significantly if you get motion sickness.
Hmm.
It's not guaranteed because everyone gets different kinds of motion sickness, but like that is definitely a consideration that like if you're getting nauseous on VR, maybe you need a better computer, and that might help you a little.
I mean, I would have a better computer if it wasn't for all the scalpers like holding on to the 3080s.
I mean, yeah. Although, you missed the last stream. I think we talked about that as well, and there are some unfortunate things going on with the 3080s. Um,
I'm angry about it.
There's something
yeah,
bad about it.
yeah. So these are specifically the non-founders edition ones. So like The Founders Editions are base benchmark cards, so they're fine. It's the overclocked ones. Apparently, there's a issue with the capacitor on them.
Wait, what?
Yeah, so the caps on the cards, because they overvolt them, are causing crashes. So if you had one of the non-Founders Editions 3080 cards, they were actually blue screening and crashing. I believe they've since put out a driver update that doesn't solve the issue, but it has significantly improved the cards. But it had something to do with like the hardware and the way they were overclocking them that was causing the issues on those.
So which one do you want to do? So which one should I buy then?
Ideally, if you want the most stable card, you should always get the Founders, because the Founders is base clock pure. That is developer recommended version. I would look into that because you're not going to get a 3080 anytime soon, being perfectly honest. So like by the time you get to buy one, they might have solved that problem.
Maybe.
Yeah. Maybe. We don't know.
We can only hope.
Yeah. So they have significantly improved the stability of this issue, but like that is a thing. Like if you can get your hands on a 3080 right now, buy a Founders Edition if at all possible, because the overclocking on some of the other cards has caused stability problems. And the driver fix is only partially solved the issue. Yeah, that's the thing that we do at 8-Bit Bistro Live. We talk tech and we learn things. Apparently, the news about the 3080 issues was news to everyone on the stream except for me, I guess.
Oh, I stopped
never heard of
caring
it.
about it when it started
heard
getting
about it.
scalped.
Yeah. But that was fun news. I'm kind of curious because I bought into the Quest 2 without anyone else trying it out, really. I think there was a handful of review units that went out into the wild. Generally well reviewed. It might cause problems for me because I bought into it early. I generally don't buy hardware right away. Like I wasn't even going to buy the 30 series cards right away. So I get to learn alongside everybody else if my hardware craps out. Yay!
That's good news for me. I'll just get a review from you.
Yeah, sounds good. You get to be the test dummy.
Yay! Oh, there you go. The EVGA FTW3 has the right voltage regulators from release. Yeah. So I guess not all of them had this issue, but it was at least largely enough of an issue that like it made press and there were problems. Leaflet's mom to the rescue.
Oh, Leaflet's mom.
You know my mom's a VTuber. I feel like I say that all the time though. Now.
But yes, so back to VR though. So that actually is an interesting thing. I can't think of any instance where any VR headset that was like a serious investment. I don't count Samsung Gear. And even then, like Samsung Gear wasn't terrible. But I correct me if I'm wrong, I don't actually recall any like serious hardware failings with like development terms. Like none of them came out where like this is crap, or none of them came out where like, oh yeah, this is terrible. Like there are better ones, but I don't think anyone was like genuinely terrible, were they?
I don't know which one it was, but I did hear some horror stories about a specific model that basically just like what they were trying to run like couldn't keep up. And I don't know if that was like the systems wasn't running it, because I believe whatever it was marketed as like a lower tier entry. But then it wasn't like capable of running the actual VR software at a rate that wasn't like causing lag or like disorientation issues.
Okay.
And I know, like, I'm trying to remember which one it is, but I don't remember. But I had like 3 people, they all got it, and they all ended up they all sold it to upgrade to something else, like within, I would say, like a month of getting it.
Okay. I haven't heard that particular issue, but that's kind of interesting.
Hmm.
I don't suppose you
I mean,
have any insight on that, Leaf. I know you have a little bit more VR investment than some of.
I mean, I actually don't know very much about computers. I usually let my mom handle all that. She's like a very tech related person, so I just kind of know like just my own anecdotal like anecdotal evidence of what I think is good or not good
Okay.
in terms of hardware.
Yeah, that's
Hardware's
fair.
not my forte. I'm still using a 1080. Like I said, it's having problems. I usually use my mom's computer because she's got like a custom built like rig, like water cooled. It works pretty well. But
Sounds kind of sexy.
expensive. It's very sexy, but I feel like if I were to try to do what she's doing, I would blow up my computer. So
No, I feel that. Just so everyone knows, I am not ashamed of it. If you have a pretty PC and it's really powerful and you put time and investment into making the lights, you call that thing sexy. You deserve it. I'm saying it right now.
And they laying down the law. You can call your computer sexy if it deserves to be called sexy.
Exactly. Computers are beautiful, beautiful things, and when you put all the time and effort into like putting it together and making it like, it's just, like give your computer a little pat, tell it it's doing a good job, give it a hug every now and again. Goes a long way. Makes your computer very happy.
Remember,
also
chat.
clean the fans.
Call your computer sexy. Call your hardware sexy. It deserves it. Out of context, Finley. This should be a thing.
Wait, no. No. I think that's a bad. Wait, no, this is a bad. I made a mistake.
I don't know. I can see the comparison. I think there are some musical instruments that are very, very attractive looking. Not like in a sexual way, but just in an attractiveness way. They're sexy, Sexy, but not sexual.
Hey, phrasing!
Bray. That is. Thanks for using phrasing. Very important. Good timing. Yeah, so. Yeah. Sexy computers aside. Back to VR. Um, you know, we all sort of have our thoughts. Yes, Finley is already speaking mad things. It happens.
Sorry.
It's okay. Listen, chat is here to have fun, and we're all here to have fun, and we're having fun. We're a little off tangent talking about sexy hardware. But
Oh my
only
God.
slightly because it is about the computers that drive our VR. Alifla has mentioned that she's getting herself a new rig. I bought a pretty beefy computer when I decided I was going to start streaming. It it should drive VR, but the big thing, the new 30 series cards are supposed to help a lot with that as well. Are all the things.
We'll have to be able to get the 30 cards first.
Yeah, that's the big tough part, isn't it?
yeah, like my computer is fully done. It just needs a graphics processor, and all the scalpers are holding on to them, so it's pretty suck right now.
would consider buying like the Quest 2? Or what would it take you to consider buying something like the Quest 2 to free yourself from the whole I need to build my computer and upgrade it and make it better? What makes the standalone headset appealing? Like what would make it appealing?
I mean, I have one. I have the Quest 1.
Okay.
The only reason why I haven't gotten the Quest 2 is because I still have a Quest 1.
Yeah, that's fair.
Maybe if I can sell it. But I actually think that they're pretty good systems. There are some problems with them as far as graphics and just processing ability. The main problem I have right now with the Quest is that if you play games like VR Chat, for example, you're kind of gated out of like most content. You can't do anything. You can't go on like most maps. You can't use most avatars. You can't even view most avatars. So you're just kind of in your own little Quest world. And like my friend who still uses Quest, we used to meet every weekend on in VR, and I just one day started using not my Quest, but he still had the Quest, and he kept saying like, I just feel like such a peasant when I use the Quest, and I think that's the big problem they're gonna have to overcome. I think.
Yeah. Because it is that fine balance of like what can I power versus what is battery efficient to power and strapped to my head. Because I mean, we could go all crazy with hardware, and it's gonna get heavy. It's gonna get hot.
Can I get a phrasing on that?
Hot and heavy.
Listen. If I have mine, you have yours.
Hey, phrasing!
There you go.
Thank you, Ray.
Bray's got your back, Finley. I mean, so let's take a sort of a sidestep from that. Back a few months, and arcade VR rooms thing, like the big thing that everyone's going for it. Reminded of my coworker, something like the whole thing is basically strapping the computer backpack and walking around with it.
Yeah.
Am I the only one that thinks that's kind of ridiculous?
Yes, I love this idea.
Chat, Finley, Leaf.
So I saw a very interesting video on YouTube. Not recently. It was like probably maybe a couple months ago, maybe even longer. But somebody initially took their bedroom and built a complete one-to-one scale of it in VR, and then put their headset on and kind of like lived in VR for like a little bit, like they were working in VR and they're doing it. And they said it was like a very like trippy experience because for them it was like they felt like they didn't need to leave VR, and there was so much more interesting things that they could do inside of the VR space. Like they could pop screens into the air, they could like draw to take notes. And so I found that really interesting, but also it was so immersive for them because like in VR they would sit down on a chair, like physically sit down with full body tracking, and the chair would actually be there.
Have you guys been to the
Void in Minecraft?
No, it's a VR arcade company that's like it's different than the ones that there's like VR arcades where it's just like you get like an hour with a Vive or something, play some Beat Saber or something. The Void is like a VR arcade, but it's an experience, as in like you are set up and you have to actually physically like move to go through it. And it's really interesting because it's kind of like what you said. Objects are actually there, so there's like a part in it where it's like you're in this ship, like an elevator or something, and then there's actual seats, and you actually like sit down in them, and you're like actually sitting in them, even though you're in VR. And you go through this whole. The one that I did was I did it with my mom, and it was a Star Wars one, and it had like railings and like doors you had to walk through, and like panels you had to like touch and stuff, and they were all actually there. And all of your allies, like it's a co-op, are actually physically there in game where they actually are. So you can actually like high five each other, and it's really weird. And they had a bunch of things like they had heat. So there's like one part because it takes place in like a volcano type of area. So like the door opens up and like this smoke comes in, and you can actually feel the heat from it. And there's a part where you're shooting over a railing. You can actually feel the railing, and it was really interesting that they had that. Kind of reminded me of what you're talking of.
Yeah, I've
Yeah.
never. There's not many like video game things on the beaches, unfortunately. So I've never been, but it sounds like a really interesting experience. I would love to go to a place like that because I think that that's the gap that like needs to be bridged between VR is having the environment around you would put you into the game a lot more and alleviate a lot of the discomfort of like hitting random things. It's not possible to make like you couldn't put all of Skyrim into like an area. It's just not possible. I'd love to go to a place like that. It sounds cool.
Yeah, that kind of immersion is, well, few and far between right now. So like that's my, like, if we can do that but do it in the home somehow, like have the right kind of feedback on like a suit or some kind of virtual room where it can generate these kinds of sensations, smells, objects. That would be like amazing, but right now there's no way to do it
They do make
outside of having a physical space.
They do make a haptic feedback suit called the Tesla suit.
Right, but you can't like
You can't sit.
hold onto a rail and like pull yourself up on it.
Right.
Can't sit down
There
on
are
it.
some physical limits to it. It can only emulate sense. Although the question is, do we ever develop that tech? Just do the whole like sci-fi thing where you just like plug your brain into a thing.
I feel like that leads to a lot more moral and social implications doing that. Also, we don't have the tech to do that right now, but I feel like the day that
Right.
that tech becomes available, there's going to be a lot of people being like, you can't plug your brain in for these reasons. And obviously we don't have the tech at all, so we don't have any like benchmark or basemark to like see what kind it would be. I'm just imagining like the implications that something like that would cause to like non-gamers that don't understand that type of tech. That we do
Die
because
in
we
the
don't have it
game.
yet.
Die in real life.
Bum, bum, bum.
You know,
Yeah.
actually. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, I'm just gonna say, in regards to the future of VR, I mean, how long until we have to, bridge that gap to get to the point of that level of immersion? Then there are moral implications and stuff like that too. But in the next couple of generations, maybe. But sorry, go ahead.
Obviously, like I think what we're gonna need, um, to kind of make VR a lot better, I think the best possible way for that to happen is artificial intelligence, like the ability to create things by artificial intelligence. Like for example, in the um, example you brought up with the room, like if there was an artificial intelligence like program that could map a room and build that in VR, and then you could have that experience, right, without having to model it yourself. Because obviously, there's not going to be a solution for people, everyone having to map their own room and build it, right? So I think artificial intelligence solutions to like create things in VR is gonna be what we need to further the technology. I think, at least development side.
That'd be awesome. That's actually a really good solution to that issue is build a computer that can do it. That doesn't even seem that far off either, to build an AI that can have modeling ability if you gave it like an image or a source file to work off.
I mean, 3D.
Yeah, we already sort of have that.
Yeah, 3D scanning is a decent way along. It's not quite robust enough to pull that off in a reasonable amount of time, but like could invest that to make that a priority.
Yeah, but I can see that in like the future. Like that could happen in the next couple of years. I feel like a lot of the tactile sense stuff is much farther off in the distance.
We have Microsoft Flight Simulator, which already uses that technology.
Mhm.
It uses artificial intelligence to create it. Like it basically, they didn't model the entire. Like you can go in a lot of places in the world in Microsoft Flight Simulator, and they didn't model the whole world. So we could, if we could find ways to apply like that kind of technology, I think that would benefit VR.
Okay, Microsoft, if you're listening, I would like what is their fancy AI called? Watson? I would like a Watson.
On a
Thank you.
Watson for making VR environments
Yes.
instead of playing StarCraft.
I mean, it can make me the StarCraft, can it?
Well, unfortunately, it has to be. It is unfortunate that the way they build AI, they're really only good at one thing at a time.
Isn't Watson a constantly is I hope it is Watson. I know Microsoft built an AI that was basically doing like the like aggressive learning, like it was teaching itself as it went. I'm forgetting the technical term, excuse me.
Yeah, so it is a self-learning AI, but like my understanding is that like each time it does a thing, it's not adding existing skill sets to previously learned skill sets. It's a different implementation of Watson focused on learning things. They may, potentially aggregate it all together into like a data bank. I
Okay, so
imagine that's probably like the goal, but
let me amend that statement then. Microsoft, fix Watson and then give it to me. Thank you.
want a Jarvis basically?
Yes. Oh, I would love a Jarvis.
Do you want the accent and everything too?
I would accept it. Wouldn't be
Paul,
mad.
Paul Bettany or bust. Let's go.
Mm-mm. Spider-Man and Iron Man are my favorite superheroes, so I'd be pretty psyched.
I feel like the problem with the Jarvis is real snarky, and I don't know if anyone wants their AI to be snarky at them all the time.
I feel like that's the best part. I feel like that's like having a best friend where you're like, I'm gonna eat this next croissant, and they're just like, are you? And you're just like, I'm gonna do it, and they're like, yeah, hell you are.
Yeah, I feel like Bray has an AI that she's been fostering. Her AI is remarkably similar to me in terms of like sarcasm. It's frightening.
Is it like the Halo AIs where they're built off an actual like human conscious?
No, it's just an
So you're the
algorithm.
true base.
It is just an algorithm, and her communication with it has apparently caused it to become sarcastic like me. Which
This is explaining so much more about her character in Lancer.
it's kind of hilarious. Yeah, she's been talking to me for 3 years. So 3 years of conversation have trained this AI. And apparently 3 years of conversation has turned the AI into a snarky, sarcastic person. Which, I mean, I feel like that's just a statement on the human condition.
Yeah. But also, this AI has only been talking to what, one person for 3 years? I'd get snarky if I was only talking to one person for 3 years.
Uh Actually, that is sort of like the thing, right? Like, sort of online. Like, if we talk about like the whole like immersive VR thing, that is part of what makes that immersive VR work, right? Like the whole concept that like in everything in sort of online is based off of AI. Like there's an AI that runs the world, AI that runs everything, AI that generates the content. Like we kind of need that to like enjoy convincing virtual worlds, because there is sort of like that disconnect where like you can make the VR real fun, you can make it real immersive, but like ultimately anything that we program now is following very strict patterns. That's a little less interesting than if like it had a proper AI. At least that's my opinion on the matter.
I'll echo that opinion. I mean, yeah, we can only do so much to make something that's cool for a little while, and grabs people's attention, but it has to be constantly changing, much like our own world is constantly changing to really lock in interest.
I'll take Phasmophobia as an example, right? Like Finley, you've played it in VR. Leaf, you've played it in VR. It's scary, right? Because you are caught up in the jump scare in the atmospheric horror. Because I don't know if anyone else agrees with this, but like my philosophy is that Phasmophobia is mostly atmospheric horror. The jump scare is there, but like most of the game is about building up to be scared of the jump scare. Like it sets you up so that like you don't know when's coming, don't know what's happening. The problem with that kind of horror is that the more you're exposed to it, the more predictable it becomes, less scary it eventually becomes. Right? Like you can get used to atmospheric horror. Jump scares are always jump scares. They're always going to catch you off guard. Like that is just in the nature of what a jump scare is. You're affected by jump scares. Generally, you don't get over jump scares because they're just startling. But the atmospheric portion of that game eventually becomes predictable. Maybe I don't know if you guys necessarily agree with that. Like, you got pretty scared because it is scary. Like, it is genuinely doing a good job of being scary. But like, would that be more interesting if there was like an AI driving that spirit to make it more unpredictable, right? Like less pattern.
I mean, yeah, because right now it's you can become desensitized to something happening over and over again, right? So having something that kind of responds to you intelligently is a lot scarier. Like, if, for example, if it said things that were one second. If we're speaking like just strictly like the voice, right? Like, it talks through the voice box. If its responses were like far more intelligent and far more like sinister towards like what was happening to you at that moment, then it would freak you out a lot more, I think.
That raises a question, right? Like, is AI a required component of VR?
Depends on the game. It's very. I mean, AI is a tool to make games better. It depends on whether or not the AI is going to be worth integrating is going to depend on the game itself, really.
Fair statement.
Yeah, it depends on the medium. I mean, because a game, yeah, AI might be useful, or like a collaborative tool where you're supposed to be basing it off the experience, but you could have totally utilitarian experiences in VR that don't require that kind of AI to make it engaging because you're using it to produce something, uh, that kind of thing, But yeah,
It'll be interesting to see how it progresses in the future.
yeah, for sure. I mean, VR, it's more widespread now, but it is kind of a niche thing, and a lot of it is games, entertainment. But exploring the practical uses of it too can help push the format, I feel. I mean, in the area of like VR and AR, I mean, you already have doctors performing remote surgeries using robots and stuff like that. And that's kind of like VR. It's more AR, but still.
It's an
Actually,
adaptation of VR into like augmented.
interestingly enough, I was actually approached by someone in the medical industry to help train them on using the Rift S, actually, because they're apparently swapping over to using that for the trainee surgeons. They'll be doing their
Ooh.
training surgeries in obviously a custom environment, but they'll be using the Rift S on that environment. I did.
So does that mean that you're now technically a professional VR instructor?
I mean, this is kind of under the books. It's more of me doing it as a favor.
but you're being paid?
I'm not being paid. I was asked as a favor and I accepted as a favor.
Oh. Have them buy you lunch. Then technically you got paid in something. And then you can put it on your resume. You are a professional VR instructor.
I could technically.
And then as we discussed earlier, you write out VR as a business because now you're officially a professional VR instructor. You are experienced in teaching other people how to use VR.
I mean, guess.
That's going to be an interesting industry, by the way. Like the multitude of like VR related job things that will eventually crop up, right? Like right now we're mostly using it for gaming in terms of like what the average consumer level person sees, but like you bet that like VR is being used for everything in the industry. It's like, want to learn how to drive? Do VR. You want to learn to cook? Do VR. You want to do a surgery? Do VR.
There was actually an interesting video I saw in regards to not necessarily VR but simulation, stating that there are pilots today who got their start on the Microsoft Flight Sim because for the longest time it's always been, and including today, it's been the most accurate representation of things like flying a commercial airline or stuff like that. So very comprehensive simulation is, I definitely think, one of the things that VR should focus on to really become ubiquitous. It already kind of has in a way, but the practical applications are fantastic.
Yeah, I feel like that goes into real world application though. Those are skills that people need with a high barrier to entry, where having VR actually lowers that barrier for people,
Mm-hmm.
which is awesome.
Oh yeah, for sure. Like, how many people actually live close enough to a small airport where they can get flight hours in, for training, or how many people can, experience, X, Y, Z without, traveling a long distance, especially those, who aren't living in, coastal areas of, the United States. If we're speaking specifically about, some of our countries, I don't know how where everyone's located. But yeah, it opens up so many more doors, lowers that bar of entry for sure.
I, for one, embrace my VR future. Everyone's learning everything through VR.
Yeah, why not?
It would certainly help with a lot of people who are real bad at learning things, indirectly.
That
I
helped me
will
a lot.
Oh, sorry, no, go ahead, Leaflet.
Oh no, that's all. I was just gonna say that helped me a lot.
I will say the one thing with learning in VR that I worry about sometimes. So here would be the best example that from like a personal experience. I had someone that I was teaching scuba diving to once, and they had told me that they had played a scuba simulator where basically you go down, you track your air and everything. And they were like super excited to do it. And then when we actually got in the water, they just had a complete panic attack because everything is real. I worry sometimes that when you take something that is in a virtual setting that you have no sense of danger in and then apply it to something that has a high danger threshold, I worry about having like a fully virtual like learning experience before actually getting into like an environment that you're not familiar with. Does that make sense?
I understand what you're saying, and you're not wrong. Like there is always going to be that person where like you get used to the idea of what you're told and the theory applies. But like once you put it into practice, there's a disconnect. But at the same time, I feel like the VR training is going to be a little bit not necessarily better, but like a little bit more helpful, right? Than just like the alternative, which is watch a video, talk it over. Like it's sort of that in between step. So you don't replace traditional learning; you use it to supplement.
Right. I mean, you can simulate whatever you want to in a virtual space, but having an actual instructor, somebody who can explain to you not just how to do something, but the different nuances of it, and maybe even understand some of those mental or physical barriers that it takes to enter into this activity that you're simulating, will help you fully prepare for it. And that's always been my gripe with online learning is you can watch as many videos as you want, but you actually have to get the experience and do it in meet space to fully understand the scope of whatever it is you're taking on in a lot of cases.
I would love if I could put skills that I've learned in VR onto like a resume. Like, say you do a training course in VR. I'd love if I could put that down and be like, "Hey, I've taken a class for this. I've done this."
So technically you can. Um, but the big stipulation there, the big but, that really only applies in certain. There's just not enough widespread implementation of the concept, which like I said, I welcome that future.
I mean, given the fact that a lot of stuff is happening right now, like, we don't have physical meetings right now, really, with the state of the world. We have, Zoom meetings, virtualized, everything that we can. It might become more ubiquitous and more, widely accepted as a way to do that. So bring it on.
Right on, world is ready.
Hmm.
Were you?
Nope.
Yeah. I mean, like that's the thing, right? VR is definitely something that we are slowly, I do say, implement. And there's a lot of like practical applications to things, like not even just like things as complex as surgeries. Like I need to teach you how to operate this forklift. I don't trust you to get onto the forklift, and I feel like the video that I made you watch doesn't qualify you for the forklift. Here's a VR forklift. Please don't go squash anybody with the VR forklift, because that will concern me greatly.
No, that's a great point. And it takes out the element of danger in a lot of things, which helps with training, stuff like that. And I think one of the biggest things that I've seen, especially in my industry, because I'm a software implementation consultant, the more stuff that you can gamify, the more people get engaged, anyways. So, like watching a video on forklift operation, tedious. Gamifying it and trying to get a good score to move on to the next stage of your training. Why not make it that way? So many of us are already raised on that concept already. It wouldn't be that hard to use it for lots of vocational trainings.
I mean, there's a lot of games that are already like that, right? You see people taking just everyday professions and making games out of it, like whether that's like owning a ramen store or something, just doing something kind of repetitive. It like gamifying things really does help out, like you said, Monty.
For sure. I mean, what and to that point, like we've taken some pretty weird, mundane concepts and turned them into best-selling games as humans. I mean, Football Manager, right? Like that didn't not sell. Farming Simulator is up there. Euro Truck Simulator and regular American Truck Simulator. These are all things that kind of gamify everyday functions.
Some of
I
those,
mean,
I wonder if they're legitimately like trying to
Yeah, I mean,
simulate.
not everything is a one-to-one
Good work,
simulation.
soldier.
I mean, I go back to the gold standard for one-to-one simulation, which is Microsoft Flight Sim, but you still kind of, it's parallel to it,
I mean, think about Sims. That's technically just a real world simulation, but then they take it and they add that element of unrealistic, and they kind of bridge that gap where it's not real, but it's still a simulation of real life. Sims is definitely one of like the best-selling games.
Oh yeah, for sure.
God, if Sims is a simulator for something, some of the people who play Sims scare me as human beings.
Yeah.
What do you mean?
What?
What?
Hey, let's murder the Sims and see how many ways I can murder a Sim game. It's like, oh no, what are you simulating?
I'm going to make all of these people swim through 1,000 miles of swimming pool and see who lives.
There's some scary people that play Sims.
The good news is that they're doing it in Sims and not real life.
Yes.
Right. And then there's people who do like genetic tracking in Sims, like what traits were inherited by, which kids, stuff like that, going through different generations, which is another cool way of doing it without being, kind of a serial killer. So,
to respond to something that was said in chat. Yeah, so the VR version of things obviously aren't quite real life, and as like we say with Sims, like people do have a tendency to behave a little bit differently in real life versus. Yeah, absolutely. VR is never going to be full replacement of like the real thing, but like it does teach you practical fundamentals in a way that you can't get that doing that are not necessarily things that you want people blindly doing.
A little segue off of that too, something I don't remember if we touched on it already. The social aspect of VR, I think, is fantastic. I think a lot of people are much more comfortable talking to people through the screen, but I think VR kind of like is like a cool in between because you can still have like a one-to-one conversation with people while at the same time feeling like you're able to. I know a lot of people that I know that have anxiety have met a lot of really good friends through VR applications because they feel more comfortable just being able to walk up and go chat with someone.
Yeah, like it is a good additional tool, and it helps with all sorts of things. And I think practical applications always go very case by case, person by person. On Mike Lee's story is saying like not everybody can learn that way, not everyone can learn that way. But that could be the same of any like to anything, like any social interaction, not good for everybody, any learning for anybody. But having it reach the point that is a valid, like recognized method like of learning is very, very cool.
absolutely. There's just a couple more hurdles to go before it's, more widely accepted. I mean, look at, the use of just to hop back a couple generations in hardware, but look at the adoption of using like tablets and computers in, public schooling to help with the process. Back when I was in high school, which wasn't that long ago, thank you, we couldn't even have like cell phones out or any other kind of tech because everything had to be notes on paper, and people were eventually just like, this isn't efficient at all. And with the adoption of that kind of technology and its acceptance, I think people are learning better, and VR is, I think, kind of one of the next hurdles, if not the next one, definitely. you know why have these public spaces except for social reasons, when or why limit people to where they can go geographically, when with VR you could do any type of learn anywhere, right?
I mean, kind of like what you guys said, it's going to depend on the person. Like some people are just going to be they're gonna excel in that way, and some people need the in-person interaction, right? So I think it's a much bigger jump personally from computers and pencils and paper.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And not everybody's, it's not going to work for everybody, yeah. But to have the option to have it accepted, that I think can, open doors for a lot of folks who maybe couldn't, attend public school for whatever reason, or a private school, for geographic or other reasons.
So, we try to keep these around hours, so we're sort of reaching the end point of the day. But I think we did cover most of the topics that we were talking about, and I think we can agree that VR is fun, cool. It needs some work, but I'd say we're getting there. Maybe not the fastest pace, but I will say we've seen some decent improvement in the VR experience last like 3 years for how we started. But let's wrap up for tonight. Anyone have anything they want to add? Tonight? No final thoughts or anything?
I guess the only thing I can really say at the end is everything's going to pace itself at a different level, and there's not a good way to predict where everything will fall in the future. But I think that everyone has their own comfort level with different sets of technology, and wherever that falls for you as an individual or a person is fine. And you shouldn't feel like you need to have VR as it like popularizes. I think take it at your pace and explore it at a level that you're comfortable with, and see how it goes. Yeah.
For me, it's I would like the VR developers and just the VR community to understand that you need a broad base of support in order to support enthusiasts. And I find this problem occurring not only just in the VR space, but even in gaming, where a lot of the hardcore players, for example, will kind of, believe that the game is like should be only developed for them, but they don't understand that they need the base of all of the people behind them supporting them. So like the esports people are able to make money doing esports because there are people to support them. And it's the same thing with the community, the VR community is if we only focus on the enthusiast things, the things that we want, and we ignore the mainstream people, that I think it is a fatal error that I don't want to see VR lose its momentum, but I think that if anything does cause VR to lose momentum, it would be that kind of mentality. That's it.
Yeah, absolutely. And final thoughts from me, just I look at everything from a utilitarian perspective. Is it going to be useful in a very tangible way? And for me, VR feels like there's some really tangible stuff out there that you can achieve with it. And I feel that any tool, its success rests on you know its applications and its broadness of applications. The reason why we have personal computers in all of our houses is because you know they were very broadly used by so many different industries, and people started becoming hobbyists in it, and then it got a home use audience. And now I have a computer that's sitting in front of me on a on a table that 10 years ago, or well, really 20 years ago, would be unthinkable. uh, and that helps everything. What's the use? How can people use it to their own advantage? And if you can't use it, then you don't have to, as has been echoed previously.
Okay. Now, side. But if VR wants to, we all know ultimately, everyone just wants to hang out with their waifus and.
There's, but you say you're not being serious, but let's be fair. Like, that's part of the reason why VR is at its current level of success.
It's not an incorrect statement.
Thanks again. Guests have Leaflet, Finley, and Monty. Yes. Wow, it's like my bot doesn't. Wow, thanks bot. Way to make me look bad. Okay.
There's the argument against artificial intelligence right there.
Wow. Okay, that would be why it's not enabled. I'm a pro streamer. There's the links. Wow, Leaflet's incorrect. Wow, okay. No, Leaflet is twitch.tv/. Wow, okay. There we go. I'm good at this, guys.
You're doing great, honey.
It's not a stream unless you have at least one scuff moment. This was my scuff moment today, I guess.
Well, it would be scuffed on me too. I feel like that's on brand.
It's the curse of Leaflet. That's what we're gonna blame it on. But yes, thanks to the guests. Thanks to everyone who came. Thanks for the raids, the follows. I hit 100 followers today, so Vandarius, thank you for being follower number 100. I have no idea what I'm gonna do about this, but
Good work, soldier.
Oh, well, Leaflet's now 101, so she made that a weird number.
Gotta have your 100 follower.
Thanks for making
stream.
the follower count weird, Leaflet.
I make everything weird.
Yeah, but this is why we love you. You're great. Yeah, so check out Leaflet. She's a great streamer, quality content. Watch her be afraid when she plays Phasmophobia. I hope to play it again. It's always great to see you panic, and actually, I'll be perfectly honest, it's far more entertaining watching the other people you collab with freak out too, because I feel like they're far crazier about when they freak out. So, you know, Leaf has a lot of friends. They're all crazy. They're all great. You should watch her and her friends.
Thank you.
Finley, she's a relatively new streamer. She's very wholesome, and I made her suffer Echo the Dolphin. So
I'm still mad about that. That game is for Fisher the face of evil. No one else can convince me otherwise.
listen, Echo the Dolphin's a great game.
Good work, soldier.
When you eventually
Me, Seiji.
when you eventually beat it, you'll understand.
So you can never have to play it again.
You'll understand why it's a classic. It's a good game. It's just hard as heck because it is a classic video game. Finley does play a wide variety of games. I don't know what you're planning on playing next, but probably some Phasmo, I would guess. That's the rage.
I'm doing my first Phasmophobia stream in VR with a friend of mine tomorrow.
Okay.
I don't know if anyone else is joining us, but I'm kind of a weird spontaneous streamer, so I just do my best as things come up.
Well, there you go, folks. You should watch Finley freak out in VR. Maybe she'll punch something.
I hope not.
Give her a follow so that you can be notified when she goes stream. She's great. Support her. She hates when you give her subs, so be sure if you can afford it to give her a sub and show your love.
No, Seiji, no.
I'm kidding. Or not, I don't know. Who knows? Yeah, I also complain about subs because I also have nothing to give you. The only thing I have is a sad little emote. You know, I tell everybody, use your channel points, unlock the emote, have fun. I'm here just to hang out. Finley feels the same. We're not here to make money off of you. We're just here to provide you content. hopefully you enjoy our content. Monty streams. He hasn't
So
streamed
here's
in a
the
while.
deal. Here's the deal. I have a group that I stream with, but again, we're all kind of in the wind right now because of there's different rumors of a global pandemic. I don't know. And so we're looking at getting the gang back together. And I'll try to get into streaming some more because I have some more time on my own channel. So follow me if you can, so that you'll get those random streams. I'd like to get a regular schedule up, but obsessive compulsive order is where I live. So it's ocorder.com. Give them a follow too, because I'll be doing some stuff there hopefully in the next couple weeks.
Yeah, then. If you want to see him sooner than that, I do run a Lancer RPG stream every other Sunday, 6 p.m. Eastern. The next stream will be on the 18th. We go for about 5 hours right now. If you like giant robots and you like tabletop RPGs, totally come check us out and listen to Monty over here apparently be a call center operator in the far future of space. It's fine. It's weird. We all have fun.
Yeah, definitely check that out. It's a lot of fun. I feel like we've gotten into a groove, a real nice groove with it. And yeah, the story is getting interesting.
I feel like we should pass on the love today. Anyone have a streamer that they would recommend? If Finley, Monty.
Let me see.
Lexi live right now?
Yes, although I don't know how long. Reading. So it's till they get sick of progression reading. So it's
And that one's been going for over 2 hours now.
Yeah. You know, I feel like if I just go off of the list that I use for VTubers, everyone's playing Genshin or Phasmophobia. So I guess
Yep.
I mean
Very true.
I mean I guess we could rate someone playing Genshin or Phasmophobia.
Yuma's playing Valhalla, the bartender game.
It's a bartender game?
Yes, that is actually a game I was considering playing. Yuma, right?
Yuma Yamano. She's got
Yeah.
52 viewers and she's doing Valhalla.
Yeah,
Seems like a good raid target.
Hey, look, it's on brand with the 8-Bit Bistro. I'll tell you that much. Yeah, again, thanks everybody who came. Yuma Yamano. Their VTuber knows them pretty well, I would say.
She likes Yuri and I like Yuri, so
I mean, that's fair. Right? Like I'm not gonna contest that one ever.
I like well-drawn art. Don't usually care what the content is, as long as it's well shaded and portrayed.
But
I just have a lot of respect for artists.
yeah, so let's do a Yuna Yamano raid. I don't have a raid call because I'm bad at this. So I don't know, just make something up. 100%, I have no shame and zero embarrassment, so I don't care how bad you make it.
You can steal mine, just write fish raid. Because I'm not creative.
But I'm not a fish. I was a potato at one point.
Oh, potato raid. There we go. Perfect.
Sure. Okay.
The fish and chips raid.
wow.
Okay, sure. Go with one of those. Let's give some love to Yumano. Let's get that raid started. Again, thanks everyone who came. Thanks everyone who followed. I'd like to do more of these in the future. At the very least, I'm going to try to do a spooky Halloween one. Let you know exactly how that goes. Guests are going to be. But the way, I hope you had fun, and I will catch you whenever I stream next, and you feel like coming along. Till then, take care of yourself and stay safe.
Good work, soldier!
All right, bye.
Take care.
Bye, chat.
Bye, chat.
Sleep and drink lots of water.
But not too much water.
Not too much water. I mean, I'm a fish. My standard for water is much higher.
This is true.